Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
I like it when they say live. We're live. WCM Live. Good evening. I'm your host, Ed McQueen, and welcome to our program this evening. Of course, our co-host, Ms. April Garner Davis. Check it out at the bottom left of the photo.
You're a man.
Yeah, good evening. And this is, but April, we're smiling now, but we've come across some very disturbing statistics that you came across, and you kind of corral these things with our special guest. And I'll just say the topic right now, like they call it a childcare desert. It doesn't sound good, but statistics, my understanding that are going to be spelled out tonight will kind of like put these things in light. Okay, but hey, I'll let you kick it off with our guest. What do you think?
Yes, thank you very much, and welcome to World Community Magazine, WCM Live. We want to remind you that if you have any questions or comments, please drop them into the comment field on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be more than happy to share them with our special guest tonight. We have someone with us this evening who works in many capacities in the community, well-known, well-loved, and definitely engaged in making the community, the environment, a better place to live and work, but also thrive. And now his work continues as a member of United Way of Horry County. And, it's really not a surprise that this particular guest is doing this type of work. And I can see that it's going to be extremely impactful. You can see the passion that he has for the growth and development of his children. So I'm sure that is just going to transfer into anything that he's doing in the realm of early education through the United Way. And so tonight we're going to talk about a couple of programs that the United Way of Horry County has in place to combat this situation that is happening when it comes down to kindergarten readiness. And, there's a group of children ages 0 to 3 who need help with, different types of development, and particularly brain development, so that they can thrive when they're in school and they'll be ready for kindergarten. And, we actually kind of talked offline just a little bit, and mainly through text messages, about, the critical need to discuss this particular issue or this topic. And so we had to have him on the show tonight so that he could share with us some of the statistics and what the United Way is doing to combat these issues. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Richard Williams Jr. to the broadcast. Richard, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well, April. Thank you so much for having me on. And Edward, thank you so much for the invitation to come and share what I find to be staggering news that I think once the community hears about it, the community will help me rally around the combating of dispelling all of these staggering statistics that we're going to talk about tonight.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Absolutely. So let's start with what, the critical issue is at this point. And the phrase that was coined is, as Brother Edward mentioned, a childcare desert, and the implications of having something like that even be a part of your environment. And I know that there's this issue is probably something that's happening all over the country, but Horry County in particular, because this is where we work and live, the statistics that were shared are really quite compelling as an argument for the fact that, now that we know better, we should be doing better, right? Yeah, and so one of the statistics that you shared with us that I'm sure helps you to lean hard into this plan that United Way has is that only 34% of students entering kindergarten are ready. And another statistic that you shared was that only 7% of Blacks going into kindergarten in Horry County are ready. So let's start with those two stats. And first of all, tell me what were your initial thoughts when you read those stats?
And these stats, April, I am saddened to tell you that those stats that I sent to you are last year's stats. And so since we had the conversation, I've looked at them again, and we are now only 28% ready. 72% of Horry County schools, based on the KRA survey, 72% of students this year were ready for kindergarten. The Department of Education of South Carolina describes what a kindergartner should look like. They call it the profile of a kindergartner. And it's not that the child really knows how to read, but just basic things, that they know how to hold a pencil, and they know how to keep their balance, and they know how to be focused, and their brain has already began to work and have been thrived in the ages of 0 and 3. So your question was, what did I think when I saw it? I did not know it was that bad. I think you live in a bubble, and you mentioned, I have 3 children, and I am really serious about their education, and I just assumed that everybody who had a child was doing the things that we were doing. And then it came to the forefront of my mind is that some parents are not doing it, not because they don't want to, it's because they don't know how.
That makes
And
sense.
so, and just when you're in poverty, you have so many things to wrestle with as a parent that unless someone stops you and says, it is important that you do X, Y, and Z with your child in order for them to be ready for kindergarten, then you won't know. I think we focus a lot on behaviors. And so we want our children to sit down. We want them to be quiet. And we forget that they are children and that they learn through exploration. And sitting down and being quiet is not developing those neurons in the brain. We just want compliancy. And I think that's just a community thing. And once we talk about, which I'm sure we're going to talk about these later, once we talk about these skills that you do with your children, you'll be like, oh, yeah, I do. I knew to do that. That makes sense to do that. I just didn't focus on that. So a lot of things have gone through my mind. I've looked at people around me differently. I've looked at cousins, and I've looked at their strategies and tried to give them some pointers. And I am happy that a lot of what I've done has been recorded, and so people have watched it. And I want to say publicly that those things worked. I didn't realize that I was actually doing the basics.
So do they listen to you? I mean, when you try to throw your points out like that?
Who, parents?
Whomever you're trying to.
I think, yes. And I think because we have had some success with our children when it comes to kindergarten readiness and being ready. Are my children angels? No, but we try to give them the skills that they needed to flourish in kindergarten. And I think people who know me know that we have done the best we could and are taking heed to some of the suggestions that I've given.
So what does it mean to be kindergarten ready?
To be kindergarten ready, so like I said, the South Carolina Department of Education describes a kindergarten ready person as one who approaches learning with inquiry. They are ready to learn. They are asking questions about learning. One, because the environment that they came from were open to questions. If you shut your children down when they're trying to ask you questions about the smallest things, the things that are very important, they won't ask you either. And when they go to kindergarten, they won't know to ask critical questions. So if you engage with your children with answering questions, even silly questions, you're teaching them that, one, they're valued. So when they get into kindergarten and they are confused, they will know it is okay to ask a question. If they're talking to you and you shutting them down, be quiet, sit down, I don't want to hear that, they won't do it in kindergarten. When they're out of your sight, they will not have been empowered to do that. So a person who is a child who is inquiring about learning is a child that is ready for kindergarten. One who is physically developed. A child who has your cell phone or their tablet in their hand 80% of the day probably doesn't have a pencil in their hand, which means they have not developed fine motor skills. So when they go to kindergarten, they're not going to want to have to write their name into trace because you at home were not encouraging writing. So even if it's scribble scrabble, we want to encourage writing. So being developmentally sound, fine motor skills, buttoning their own clothes, teaching them to zip, those sorts of things. That's kindergarten readiness. They can go to the bathroom on their own. The teacher can't take your 5-year-old to the bathroom because she's got 18 other 5-year-olds.
Right.
Kindergarten readiness, helping them to be independent. What color am I wearing today? I'm wearing a red sweater today. I'm teaching my colors. Just by naturally doing my everyday thing, I am inserting learning in what I'm doing. How many buttons am I buttoning today? I'm buttoning button number 1, button number 2, button number 3, button number 4. I'm learning to count. A child that is most emotional and socially developed. Those things are so important in our community. And a lot of times when we're in poverty, we hurt in a way that we sometimes hurt our children. Hurt people. And when we are hurting, we share that with our children, and our children are very sensitive to that. And so we want to be careful with the burdens that we carry in public because our children carry that. I was telling my boss that my wife and I, of course, grew up in the same community, the same church and everything. But there was a 7th grade trip that all the 7th graders went on. And my wife went on that 7th grade trip. And I said, well, how could you go on that trip? You were just as poor as I was. She said, because I asked my mom. My mother, I knew was struggling. And because I knew she was struggling, I never approached her with going. As an adult, my mother asked me, why didn't you ever tell me that you wanted to go on that trip? I never brought the paper home because her struggles I carried. See what I'm saying? Whereas my wife's mother was struggling the same way, but she never let her children feel the burden of her struggle. And so my wife was able to ask for anything because she didn't have any limits. Whereas I felt the pressure of my mother. So we want to be careful about how we, not to make them think that they live in a fairy tale, but not also, we don't want to stress our children out because we're stressed. You know, they carry that. Mathematical thinking. A child who is thinking mathematically in numbers, counting, like I said, counting buttons, those sort of things. You know, right now today, my son, if he gets anything that's more than one thing, he's going to tell you, I have 3 of these, 1, 2, 3. And that's because we just have a culture of counting things just by virtue of the fact that we're counting. I have a Subaru. My children would get in the car and count all the Subarus they see all day. We see 5 Subarus today, Dad. Well, I saw 5 Subarus. You did? Why? Because they're in the mode of counting everything. So when little Parker goes to kindergarten next year, they're not going to be able to shut him up about the things that I'm scared for the teacher. And also, the last thing I will say about that is language and literacy. A child who knows words, I'm talking about real words, goo goo gaga and tati and Passy and all these other little pet names that we say around our children don't work. I have a family member that doesn't live here in South Carolina, so I can talk about him. He, for his developmental years, 0 to 3, couldn't talk. And So I remember my mother saying, well, who keeps him during the day? Well, the lady that kept him during the day just mumbled. Everything he said was mumbled. So no wonder the child couldn't talk, because all he heard was mumbling. You know, so we want to speak clearly with our children. We want to have conversations with them. We want to bring them to the table. Megan and I were really intentional, even when we first realized we were having a baby and we were sitting at the table. We sat at the table together. And then once Caleb came into the world, we put his little high chair at the table with us. And so there's a culture in our house that we sit together and we discuss. There's no devices at the table. Caleb told Jenna yesterday, Jenna, you know we don't have devices at the table. I didn't have to say
okay.
at our table, we have discussion. We talk about. And of course, the discussion today is a lot more developed than it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago when Caleb was a little boy. We would talk about things that, you know, he liked, baby shark, but we were talking. So you want to talk to your children, not at them, but with them. And those are the things that you will see in a kindergartner that is ready.
I think that you know, it's always interesting to see the connectivity between, you know, the different things that you talked about as it relates to the development of a child, an adult, or anybody. One of the things that you mentioned and talked about was the emotional and social development. And I saw that in your bulleted list and knew you would cover it. And I actually wrote the words trauma-informed care beside that, because in my mind, you know, as you're telling the story about, you know, even how you were as a child, and we talk about the things that really impact a child's development and learning, their emotional and social, you know, intelligence and all of that. Sometimes those things can be pretty traumatic for the child, even at a very, very young age. And then as they get older and become adults, they don't know how to thrive in society because they haven't learned how to master their emotions and how to deal with, you know, any kind of social anxieties that they may be faced with, or even, you know, just, you know, trying to deal with emotions that come up simply because of things that they remember from their childhood that's triggering, you know. Right. So you're right. You know, when you have healthy family relationships and healthy family moments like what you're describing in your own household, it really does make at least it should make a child feel safe and secure in who they are and their ability to express themselves, or, you know, to, you know, showcase their curiosity. And I agree with you, even if whatever conversation this child is having with you doesn't make any sense to you, the words, you know, are you know, not synergistic or whatever, just have the conversation. Sometimes it's actually kind of comical when you talk to a child and you think about their imagination and all of that. And so being ready in that respect and learning those things that actually lead into soft skills and interpersonal skills and everything else that they're going to have to use as adults is really, really important at this stage. And some people would say, well, 0 to 3, you know, that's kind of young, isn't it? But it's really not in this day and age. You have 3-year-olds who know how to master a cell phone. You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah, it's really not too young.
And the science really suggests, April, that this stuff happens before birth.
I believe it.
That even in the belly, that you are talking with your children. They recognize your voice. If they don't recognize anybody else's, they recognize your voice. And you want to do that at birth. You want to read to your baby. You want to have music around your baby in the womb. And those children come out with a eagerness for learning. I know for a fact, all 3 of my children are musical, not only because I'm musical, but we introduced them to music and play very early on, even from the womb, and reading. As soon as they came out, we put a book in their hand. There's pictures. My wife showed me a picture of the day I was reading to Caleb, and Jenna's head I wasn't even supporting Jenna Head right. She was, but I was reading, and that girl, those two children are readers today because we put a book in their hand. And then, even when they cannot read, you let them use their imagination with the pages.
Absolutely.
Let them tell the story that they see. That they are using neurons, and those connectors are connecting in a way that you don't even realize. I don't know if I've said the statistics already, but 80% of the brain development happens between 0 and 3. By the time your child is 3, the brain is almost the size of an adult brain.
Wow.
And the question is, are those connectors the same? So if you look at a child's brain who we have involved them in all these things, we have read to them, we have pointed to them, we have talked with them, that child's brain, the neurons and the connectors look black, right?
Yeah.
On a graph, it looks black. A child who has been sitting at grandmama's house on a tablet, watching television, not being talked to, not being loved on, it is black spots, and it is scattered throughout the graph, which means that all of those opportunities to connect those dots did not happen. And what that is saying is that sitting in kindergarten classes all across our county, the richest county in Horry County, in South Carolina, and the largest, one of the largest counties in South Carolina, there are children sitting there with spotty brains. And it is not an indictment. Let's make this very clear, because Horry County schools, people will hear this and blame Horry County schools. We are saying when they walked into Horry County schools, this is what Horry County schools got. And they have to work with what they have. The question is, what are we presenting to Horry County schools so that they can further develop our children, and that we can sit back and say the trajectory for our children is great.
Right.
If they don't have it in kindergarten, we already know what happens by the 3rd grade. And if they don't have it by the 3rd grade, the 3rd grade pipeline to prison,
right,
is a straight line. But we would say we need to start in, old thought was we start in 3rd grade and make sure that they're 3rd grade ready. We got to make sure they're ready to go to kindergarten.
Correct.
Because if they're not ready to go to kindergarten, they will not thrive by 3rd grade.
Well, it's a reality that we have to accept, and we have to stop, like you said, pointing fingers, because for the most part, the child is with the parent or some parental or guardian unit before they actually go to school. And it is important to be intentional about, even who you're placing your child with, because as you know, parents have to go to work. They're away from their children, maybe 8, sometimes 10 hours a day. And you want to make sure that whoever you're leaving your child with is nurturing and has the patience and the willingness to, do those things, versus plopping them down in front of a TV or a tablet, for the stimulation, just to get them out of the way or whatever the case is. So, this is quite a reality check. And so we're glad that United Way of Horry County has a couple of plans and some things going on. So tell us a little bit about these plans. The Heggerty, and I will mess up that word, awareness curriculum. There you go. And then the basics. Tell us all about those two things.
Okay, so we looked at the problem, right? And then they had these conversations before I came to United Way about how they were going to address the problem. And phonemic awareness is a strategy that is like one step before phonics. So phonics would be words that I can read. Phonemic would be words that I can hear. And so we are teaching through phonemic awareness before they ever see words on paper, that they understand how words work. That there's a beginning sound and an ending sound, and the words can be broken apart. And so we're teaching kids how to do that. So we thought, well, what better way than to go to a childcare center and give them this curriculum, train them on doing it, and then taking the data and see if it works. So we have identified childcare centers in Horry County. We are literally giving you the material, and it is very hard. So I hope that our audience would have in mind some daycare centers that we can partner with. I know daycare centers get a lot of stuff being thrown at them, a lot of people trying to sell them stuff. We're not trying to sell you a thing. We want to give you this beautiful gift of a supplemental curriculum that we have seen the science, and the science has proven that if you expose children to the mechanics of words and how, and to listening for words, that is a good precursor to learning how to read. We're not only giving them to daycare centers, but we're also looking at home daycare centers as well to partner with, because there's another statistic. I don't know if you saw it, April, but 70% of kids that are 0 to 5 before they get into kindergarten are not coming from a daycare center. They're coming from grandma's couch.
Okay.
Yeah, they're coming from a neighbor. They're coming. They've sat for 5 years with none of this stuff that the basics and Heggerty are teaching. So that's why we want to not only get into the daycare centers, but we want to get into these mom and pop home daycare centers. If we can give them these tools that they can start working with the children to make sure that Horry County Schools gets the cream of the crop when they get there. So we have the Heggerty program that's working well. I just need more partners. I need more daycare centers to trust that we have their best interests at heart. It's just been hard to get them to do one more thing, and I think that's what they see as this one more thing I gotta do. But this one more thing will take about 10 minutes of your academic day, and we suggest that you do it at least 3 times a week, if not every day, and get those neurons working and working with the phonemic awareness. That's that piece. Then we have the basics, and this is where the grandma steps in. This is where the community steps in. This is where the mom gets support through the basics. The Basics Learning Network was designed by a professor at Harvard named Ron Ferguson, African-American professor, looked at the problem with 3rd grade and decided that we need to go well beyond there. We need to go to birth. And so he looked at what makes a kindergartner, the profile of a kindergartner, and then came up with these 5 steps, these 5 principles, and then studied children in Boston and said, if we give a child these 5 things for 5 years, that child will be ready. The first thing was to maximize love and manage stress. If we loved our children more and managed the stress, like I was talking about earlier, my mom didn't do that too well because I could feel her stress. If we gave parents tips on how to love my child better, how to love them more, how to take that little time between bedtime and just holding them and telling them how much I love you. Mama did that well. But as far as stress goes, I felt the stress. So maximizing love and managing my stress. Because when we're stressed out, we talk to people all kinds of ways. We worked all day and we're a single parent and nobody's helping us. And our children are going all around the house. They are acting crazy. They're just being children. But for us, I'm frustrated. And if I don't take a minute to breathe, to smell the roses, I'm going to end up developing an angry child. So we give you tips on how to do that. Some things you can do to love your child, some things you could do to manage the stress. You got something to say?
Yes, sir. So I see the challenge here as getting to that home daycare.
Yes.
I think that presents a real, a huge challenge there. Do you all have any kind of scenarios in mind that in a planning stage of how you're going to?
Well, we just trained our first home daycare last Monday. And so hopefully with her, we can discover a network of them and she will know, and maybe we will get to those persons word of mouth. I just think we needed to get started somehow. Initially we wanted 6. We finally got up to 6. So we're going to start with 6 in this cohort, and then we'll do another training next year with 6 more. And we'll grow that, and we'll continue to walk this 6 that we've started with. We'll continue to walk with them through Heggerty. And walking with them just means I go in, I do assessments for the daycare centers, but I also am there to help a teacher who needs help with Heggerty. So I did an assessment the other day. I realized that there was a piece of it that all the kids were not really on. So I asked the teacher if she would allow me to do the lesson that day. And so she was like, oh, wow. Okay, now I get it. And so that's the kind of support that we're giving with United Way, because I've had the same training they've had. But I will be that backbone for them as they get to hurdles. But yeah, the strategy is we're working with First Steps to give us names, to kind of give us some credibility on what we're doing, and then word of mouth.
So how are you all on the resources, monetary resources? Everybody's always needing money, but
we need money. So we need more money. I'm not going to say we don't need money. We have
a national network. You have a national resource.
We do not have a national resource. Unlike people think, we have a national name. We have a national name, but our resources are local.
Okay.
All of our resources are local. We pay the nationals to carry their name. National only gives us credibility. We have name recognition. That's all we get from nationals. So every dollar that we get comes from local partners. Our biggest local partners, shout out to Publix. Every Publix in Horry County gives to us. And then through their campaigns. And that means every employee from Publix gives a percentage of their earnings to United Way. And that's the same with Santee Cooper. Those are our 2 largest donors. And then we have individual campaigns. Individuals give money and pledge to us. And then other corporations, smaller corporations, do the same. So without those monies, we cannot do what we do. And across the board, across the nation, those monies have decreased as our economy has changed. As folks have died off, older people tend to give more, and older people are dying, and younger people are not philanthropists like older generations were. And so that is changing. So every dime we can get, we need, because we have a robust strategy of getting this messaging out. So I've talked about one of the principles. There's 4 others, but what we will do is we will have parents sign up for the Basics Insights. And Basics Insights is a text messaging system, because every parent, I don't care how poor they are, have a phone. Even if it's an Obama phone, we got a phone. Yeah. We don't have anything else. We homeless with a phone.
Right.
So if we can get them to subscribe to the Basics, we will pay for that child to get these tips 5 years from the time they're 0 to 5 going into kindergarten. And it's about $10 a seat, and that means $10 a child. And so we are planning to at least sign up 500 children next year. And I hope to bust that number. And if we can get 500 signed up, that's 500 kids that are closer to being ready for kindergarten next year. and we're going to need the help of the community to help pay for that. But we're going to bite the bullet and go ahead because we believe in it. But we're going to need support in the future once I add on to that 500.
Yeah. So what kind of places as venue that you all have in mind? I know that, yeah.
That is a very good question. So the idea how to get this out is called community saturation. That means when I walk into a room tomorrow I will be at the Conway Coffee Connect. And in the Conway Coffee Connect held by the chamber, there will be every sector represented there. And what I will tell those people in the morning is that every person in this room has an opportunity to share the basics. It just depends on what you have the capacity to do.
Yeah, right.
Some employers will say, can you give me a basics poster I can put into my break room? And on that poster, we'll have the QR code that will go to our website. And every principal has a tab. And on that tab will be suggestions. And on that tab will be a video that will give you tips. And then you can also get the basics insights. So that's what I will offer just anybody. Then we want to look into healthcare providers. If I'm going to partner with the basics with a healthcare provider, I'm going to present the science behind why this is important for a pediatrician to share with their wellness visits. You can show the video in a loop in your lobby. You can give the basics packet. We can do a toolkit where it will have the tips. It will have game suggestions and books that we can give a parent when they do their whatever wellness check the doctor thinks it's useful for. Their 3-year-old check, they all get this particular toolbox to take home, and they can sign up for the basics. The basics also has what I want to invest in are these tablets that the parent can use during the waiting time. While they're in the waiting room, they can open the tablet and learn about the basics that way too. We want to partner with schools. We've already had meetings with Horry County schools, and they are on board. We just need to kind of design how we're going to implement it and at what stage we're going to implement it at. Museums and libraries. I had a meeting today with the Myrtle Beach Museum in the south end of Myrtle Beach. I shared with the director the basics, and she's now wanting to display the basics in the museum. This is wonderful. This is wonderful. Barbershops, stylists.
Yeah, which one of the museums in Myrtle Beach?
The Myrtle Beach Museum. It's the Chapin Museum. It's a free museum in Myrtle Beach, and they have early artist program where they meet with young artists and teach them skills. And that goes hand in hand with the basics, because there's this whole thing about explore through movement and play, and then they read stories to the children. So it goes hand in hand. So you want to partner with organizations that already work with children. That's number one.
Right.
Then ask them, then engage them with the basics, and then ask them, how do you think you can use the basics in your sector? And for everybody, it will be different. Every conversation I have with a person, as I'm talking with them, their mind will be mulling over 1,000 ways that they could use the basics. It might just be, I can just get kids signed up. That's perfect. It might be, I can give out a packet. I can give out books and have your QR code on the inside of the book. That's all I can do. I will say, thank you very much. I want in the next 3 to 5 years, everywhere we turn, that you would have seen the basics somewhere, be it on a billboard, be it in the lobby of a place, be it in a grocery store, be it on your cart. Somewhere I will go to the laundromat, and there's numbers on all of the laundry, all of the washing machines. This washing machine 1 with a counter on it, washing machine 2 with a counter on it. I want you to say, that's what Richard was talking about. It's everywhere. It's in English, it's in Spanish, and it's in whatever other language we need it to be in. We want to get it out.
It sounds like you're also the marketing manager over that, though.
I'm the marketing manager, at least for the basics. It's a one-man show right now.
Oh, really?
But, I got a lot of great ideas. We went to the Basics Conference in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I tell you, I sat in my office 3 months trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And went to this basic conference and realized all I needed to do is to have the passion, the heart for it, and spread the word and allow organizations that already are working in the community to be the craftsmen and craftswomen around implementing the basics and just being that backbone. So that museum, I'm going to make sure she gets those display stands, and I'm going to make sure that she gets our statistics and our QR codes to put on those things. And I'm going to be the backbone, and she's going to be the one to push it.
All right. Man, you need a more, not a more captured audience, but do you, I guess you've only been there, what, 6 months? You read
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. I'm envisioning.
I've only known what I'm doing for 1 month.
Wow. Well, let me tell you something. You're walking in your purpose. This is your why, because you know, it sounds like you've been doing this for years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the passion is, it radiates from you. And I can't imagine you being a father of 3 and not having that kind of passion. But the reality is, like you said before, every parent doesn't know how to get there. Every parent doesn't understand why it's important. So you're about to lead a tribe to victory. That's what you're about to do.
I hope so.
You are. Mm-hmm. You are, and it really is incredible. And so you talked about the basics. You talked about Heggerty, the implementation strategies, and what you need to do. The kind of businesses or organizations you need to partner with, which is so important. It is so important to have those collaborations, because that's your network. And as you grow that, it's just going to continue to increase by leaps and bounds. And so, the hope is that you will have that support the more you tell your story. And you're right. It doesn't matter how you tell the story, just that you tell the story, and that it comes across in the way that you intend. And so I tell you, it's needed, and I think they have the right person for the job, Brother Edward.
Absolutely.
And so glad that you're doing this work, that you're really doing this work.
I'm like I was about to say that I'm envisioning some huge requests from the community after listening to you this evening. I
hope so.
To come and speak, as a good starter.
I am really open to that, and that's a part of our strategy as well. I'm glad you brought that up, to come and to speak to these small communities, and especially those places where there is a desert, like in Green Sea, and where I pastor. So, and that's another thing. I pastor in a rural community that doesn't get a lot of the resources that the children that I know the children need, that I know people need. Right. And so that also drives my passion. So if you are in a community, or if you know a place that would have me to come and talk to parents of that age group between 0 and 5, I would relish the opportunity to come and share some of these tips and have this conversation on a regular basis, to get this in parents' minds. And I don't care how poor your child is, if you get these steps, that child will be a success.
Absolutely.
That child will be a success.
You're quite confident of that. It's good to hear.
I'm sure.
So much confidence. That really, it's good to hear that. Yeah. That was good. Okay.
All right. Well, Richard, we thank you so much for being with us tonight, and continue the good work. And of course, if there's anything that we can do to help, please, you know how to reach us, of course, and I definitely know how to reach you, especially especially when I need my fix. We're not gonna get into all that tonight, but you hooked me and my family up for Thanksgiving, and my daughter said, "Oh, and the packaging."
You like my new boxes?
I love your new boxes. I can't wait to see them on the shelves.
Wow. Brother Edward, I make sweet potato pies.
Woo! Does he ever? Oh my goodness, brother
85 this year. 85.
You made 85 pies?
85 pies this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Brother
I'm
Edward
getting more
there.
efficient with it too. As the years go by, I'm learning how to do it more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it tastes as good as a bean pie. I'll stop right there.
Well, thank you so much, Richard, for sharing all this wonderful information about the United Way Basics, the Heggerty Curriculum, what you're doing in Horry County, and we hope and pray that you continue to make an impact. And so,
can I share our website?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
As a matter of fact, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
So the Basics website is www.basicswakama.org.
Okay.
And it has all the tips: maximize love, managing stress, talk, sing, and point, count, group, and compare, explore through movement and play, and read and discuss stories. So those are the 5 principles. Right. And with all those principles are specific suggestions that you can do to get your child ready for kindergarten. Awesome. Basics Wakama.
All right.
And you can follow Basics Wakama on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page where we're also giving tips.
Don't forget, Brother Edward, and the magazine. If you want to write up something, I'm sure Brother Edward would love a contribution in the form of an article for the magazine on this very topic. Yeah,
I definitely can do that.
I think Brother Richard and I have gotten together once before, and as soon as I did WEOs.
That's right.
Well, we don't talk about it. I mean,
we can talk about that.
Good article. It's a good article.
I'll send you another good article.
Hey, absolutely.
All right.
So, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Take care, Richard. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Good night.
All right. Good night. So, Brother Edward, that was wonderful information about this critical situation here in education. And we can't stop talking about education. We got to keep pushing. Yeah, we have to keep pushing on this topic.
Okay, what they say, they can criticize us as much as they want to, but that and health. Okay.
Yes.
And health. So April, we know that the alumni gala is sold out and everything is finished. I just want to reiterate to people, those who are coming from out of town. I suspect that we're going to have a number of them coming from out of town. We'll be staying at the hotel. And if you're living in Conway, if you want to see some, we have the opportunity to get to the World Community Magazine Vintage Room. I think I told you about that last week, but I'm going to hit on it, a bit more every week when I could. December 23rd is the same day of the gala, and it's from 10 in the morning to 2 o'clock. Give it some time for people to have something to do, especially the people who are staying in hotels. And walk down to the Staybridge Suites Hotel, and there's a meeting room there. You can't miss the meeting room. They're only 2 together. So, and that's located at 303 Fantasy Harbor Boulevard. You can see it from the Four Seasons, which is where everybody where the gala is going to be. And you can call to make a reservation. That's 843-903-4000. Not a reservation, but just find out more information about that at the Staybridge. Okay, because we're going to be showcasing 30 plus years of history on Conway and Horry County, and of course Whittemore. And be ready to be excited about and find yourself being in awe of some of these things that these vintage photos, especially that we have there for you. One is in particular, I know a lot of. Can I put it up, April? Do you have it? Let's go there. Yeah. If anybody can tell us what that is, well, I'll just go into it in the interest of time. That's Billy McLeod's place. It's a lot of history there, a lot of history, and it's valuable history. Okay, and we can have a long conversation about that. The first shoe shine place in Conway, in our section of town. So that's just a little. That's the still photo, but we're gonna have videos of all that stuff, including Billy McLeod's place. So just be ready. I'm gonna hit you with some stuff 30 years ago, and especially at the galas that we used to have in the past. Okay, so you want to see yourself how you looked 30 years ago? There you go. But anyway, all right. So there you have it. And April, we'll see everybody next week at this time. Who's our guest next week? We're working on it.
So, well, next week we are going to highlight an initiative that Marilyn Hemingway of the Gullah Geechee Chamber of Commerce has been working on, and it brings attention to illegal vaping among our youth. And so we will have some special guests who will come on and talk about this crisis. It's another crisis in our community, and we'll talk about the impact of illegal vaping, how it is impacting our youth, meaning school-age children, right, who, they really don't understand how bad it is and what a dangerous product this really is. And so there needs to be some extra attention on this particular issue so that parents will understand too what it means whenever their child engages in that kind of behavior. So next week, as planned, special guest, watch out for the promo. It will come out soon, but we are rolling on, and we will have those special guests next week.
And April, after that, we are looking at, and it's possibility, huge possibility, that you've heard of the Myrtle Beach 101. They're having a course on Myrtle Beach given by none other than Miss Cookie Goins.
Okay.
Over there. And it's supposed to be very eye-gripping to look at and to just to know about. Okay, this is something that's to me that's a huge endeavor to get the not just the tourists but everybody something about Myrtle Beach itself, and especially Carver Street. Okay, mm-hmm. And what's place, Charlie's Place, and all that, mm-hmm. all of Myrtle Beach, and the contributions that were made from the laborers that lived on Carver Street, Hemingway Street, King Street, and all those. Okay, that made up Myrtle Beach, for what it is. Mm-hmm. So we're looking forward to that. That's on, I believe, the week after, Tuesday after next.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
All right. So.
Well, we just want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. And, the great thing about our broadcasts on Tuesday nights, even though they're live broadcasts, they're actually available for replay on WCM or WCMagazine.net and also on our YouTube page. So, send someone to WCMagazine.net so that they can watch the rebroadcast of this particular show, or send them to YouTube, and from YouTube share a link and help disseminate this great information that Richard shared with us tonight, because again it is very crucial that we actually get this out, and we want to make sure that we're supporting Richard as much as possible as we work towards alleviating this particular educational crisis. So share that information, and if you have any questions or whatever, you can always drop them in the chats, or you can hit up Richard directly if you know how to find him on Facebook, and he'll be able to help. So, Brother Edward, I'm starting to slow my words. I'm very, very tired. It is time to wrap it up. Yes.
I'll advise. Let me advise
I have a very long day today. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll advise everybody to stay tuned for the December issue of the World Community Magazine, coming out in a few days, probably before the next broadcast. Okay. All right. So we'll see you next week, right here, same station, same time. God bless.
All right. Take care. We'll see you soon. All right.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook. with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.